I'm Alex Pault, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, I wanted to talk about Tudor. I recently had several moves in my collection that revolved around Tudor and Rolex. I had come to the decision that I had the Rolexes in my collection were more like I needed a Rolex in my collection, and I started selling them off. And I had kept my Explorer too, because I figured you got to have at least one Rolex in your collection. And I was even on the fence about selling it, and I got a display back for it and tried to, have some fun with it. And I realized, nah, sell it, get rid of it. And it's because Rolex really has distorted the watch collecting industry in some good ways and in some bad ways. I mean, they've brought a lot of attention to the marketplace, but in one sense, they've poisoned it by creating this black hole of residuals that sucks up all of the attention from everything else in the marketplace. And so in that sense, it's actually bad for the marketplace because you should retain value in a watch, but I mean, if you're trying to make money and hope that you're going to double your money or get 30, 40%, return, get into some other space. Watches are not for speculators. Rolexes are, but like I said, it distorts the industry. So I got rid of all my Rolexes. And I thought, you know what? I'll give Tudor a chance. And I bought a Tudor print date. And I realized that yes, Tudor is a valid company, but not as Rolex's sidekick, which is, of course, what Hans Wilsdorf created Tudor to be. But the new Tudor is actually the old Rolex. I mean, everything Tudor's known for today is what Rolex used to be known for. And everything Rolex was known for, nothing in Rolex today touches that. I challenge my audience. Find a watch today sold by Rolex that, like, somebody's going to actually go out and get dirty. Show me a spelunker buying an Explorer. Show me a tourist mountain climbers, yes, but show me a serious professional who's buying a Rolex for anything. They're buying a Tudor. They're buying an Omega. They're buying a Glycine. They're buying a Tag Heuer. There are a lot of watches that do what they do. And I'm not saying don't get a Rolex. I mean, if you can afford it and find a good one, get it. Nothing's wrong with that. But sadly, Rolex isn't about watch collecting anymore. Rolex is about Rolex collecting, about luxury goods. I mean, hyper luxury goods. I did a video on that aspect. Yes, watches are luxury goods. I mean, these are several $1,000 a pop products. But there's a difference between a luxury good and a hyper luxury good. A luxury good is something that if you dedicate yourself to getting, you can afford and enjoy and have some residuals. But buying a Rolex, it's like being a car enthusiast and trying to get your hands on a Ferrari. There's a waiting list for the new ones, and if you want to get an old one, you got to pay a premium. And Ferraris actually have taken some of the, life out of the high end of cars, because high end of cars is recognized by everybody to be, ultra rarefied atmosphere. That's not how watches should be. I mean, yes, something that cost the cost of a good used car is a luxury good, but it's not an unattainable luxury good. It's not hyper luxury. It doesn't suck all of the life out of the hobby. And so I sold my Prince date, and I sold my Explorer, and I bought a Black Bay Heritage, which I am extremely pleased with. And it was the coming out model, as it were, for the new Tudor. Everything that Hans Wilsdorf wanted for Tudor is in this watch. Frankly, everything that Hans Wilsdorf wanted for the old Rolex is in this watch. I do think it's interesting that this is a modified edit, but heavily modified, properly modified. And the movement in this watch looks better than the movement in the new Tudor, and that's an in-house. But then again, Rolex, like I've said before, they're very, 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 very notorious for price pointing every little thing. Bezels cost money. This model doesn't have those faux rivets. They're like, wow, we make this comeback, it was too good a comeback to say, "Ooh, we better put some faux rivets on it and douche it up a bit so it doesn't compete too much with the Submariner." So you can really see the Rolex price pointing, their philosophy, but they're having fun with Tudor. Tudor's what the old Rolex used to be. Nice watches, well made, and now they have in-house movements, but frankly, that wasn't all that important to begin with. And I think that this modified ETA is actually as good a movement as their new in-house. I mean, their new in-house is, of course, free-sprung balance, full balance bridge. It's a good tool watch movement. But then that goes right to my point about Tudor being the new Rolex. And Rolex wants this. Rolex wants to be the new Audemars Piguet, which is a one-hit wonder. And Rolex has become a one-hit wonder in the sense. Their steel sports watches are what people want, and everything else can go suck it. I mean, buy a Cellini and try to resell it at anything close to resale. The Cellini is an example of a Rolex that is not a Rolex, and that shows you the cult of personality that's around Rolex. But the Tudor, this is the Tudor Black Bay Heritage is an awesome watch and a great piece to check out. It's definitely worth your time. Let's flip the camera around and take a close-up look. So, here we have the Tudor Black Bay Heritage, a perfect example of how the new Tudor is the old Rolex. I mean, in fact, the Black Bay Heritage represents everything Rolex used to be when Hans Wilsdorf founded the original company. I mean, of course, it also represents what Tudor was when Hans Wilsdorf founded it, but essentially, Wilsdorf wanted to catch lightning in a bottle twice. I mean, he took Rolex from a company that was just ordering cases and ordering movements, and with genius marketing and incredible foresight, I've said many, many times, Wilsdorf's genius was that he called wristwatches. No one else focused on wristwatches before Rolex. And so not only did he call it for wristwatches, he fulfilled it and he followed through on his dream and he pursued it to the point where he beat everyone else. And you can't take that from him. And in the case of Tudor, when they rekindled Tudor, they created this. And the Black Bay Heritage, or the Smiley, as it's also called because of the curved text, was made so well, they actually, in my personal belief, kind of douched up the following version, because if you think about it, this watch, sorry about that. If you think about it, this watch had well, it has, but I mean, the new one does not have this movement. But this version has an ETA base, but Tudor didn't just leave it as an ETA base, and they didn't just put a decorated rotor on it like 90% of the companies that buy an ETA base and then say it's a in-house movement. Tudor actually not only replaced the shock mechanism in the ETA for what Rolex uses, didn't only replace the hairspring for what Rolex uses. They also replaced the regulation mechanism, not specifically to one Rolex uses, but to one better than the one in the ETA. It's easier for the watchmaker to adjust the regulation of the balance wheel, and the new one in-house is a free-sprung balance, full balance bridge, but it's just a, bead-blasted powder finish look movement. And this movement, I wish I could show it to you, but unfortunately I'm going to have to get my hands on a tool for that because they do use a specialized tool to get the back off. But I wish they did put a display back on this one because the movement in it looks better than what Rolex puts into most of their watches. I recently put a display back on my Explorer 2. It rekindled a love affair that lasted for a while, and then I did go ahead and sell it as I intended. But frankly, it's nicely decorated inside, but it's not decorated as well as this is on the inside. And then when you look at something else, let me show you. If you think about how the new Black Bays have that fake riveting on the bracelet. Rolex deliberately douched it up to make it a little less attractive. They didn't want this to compete. This was very competitive. This was taking a lot of people's attention. This is a gorgeous bracelet. And the new one is actually a better bracelet. It's got the adjustment system. But frankly, those fake rivets make it look a little douchey. All right? And the problem there is that's the business side of Rolex coming out. They are very predatory amongst their own products. If you want a different colored bezel, it's just the bezel color. Bang! It costs more. Not even a little more, a lot more. You want to have a date? Wham! It's a specialty. You can't even get a date in some versions. Obviously, then we're not talking about versions you could call, say, for example, a date just an OP with a date. But the bottom line is that Tudor is, even with the shackles that Rolex has placed around their ankles so they can't be as cool as Rolex in ways. This latest, for example, the ceramic Black Bay and the blue Black Bay 58, Rolex is allowing Tudor to be that inventive, interesting company with solid cases and good movements. And now they have their in-house movements as well, which frankly, I think the North Flag is an underrated watch. It was the first with the in-house movement, and it has a display back. And it's not a beautiful movement in there, but it's a very, very clean and simple and beautiful in its cleanliness and simplicity. But the bottom line is that the new Tudor is the old Rolex. They offer the bang for the buck. They offer the choices in colors and styles. And like I said, you can tell that Rolex is deliberately handicapping them in a way to make sure that they don't compete with them too heavily. But the bottom line is that the new Tudor is the old Rolex. Everything that the old Rolex was known for, Tudor does now, and everything that Rolex was known for, they do not do today. If anybody today can show me anywhere a watch that people who actually go out and get their hands dirty buy a Rolex, they're probably going to do it partly for the fact that it is a good watch, but they're also probably going to do it for the fact that it's a Rolex, because there are watches out there that will do the job far better and look far better doing it. Case in point, this Tudor Black Flag. I was thinking of the North Flag. Oops. Case in point, this Tudor Black Bay Heritage, at its price point, crushes just about everything in its class. The only watches that I could think of that are better than it cost more than it. And the watches that are as good as it cost more than it as well. And there are some good buys out there in the diver category and good deals out there. But I don't think that they offer the same fit and finish. They offer the same look. And frankly, the Tudor does have Rolex DNA. That face screams Rolex DNA. The way the indices are, well, in this case, plated, but the metal indices, the applied, just the cleanliness, the tightness of how everything is done screams Rolex. The Rolex fit and finish, which is what Hans Wilsdorf intended when he created the brand. But Rolex is trying really hard to become Audemars Piguet, and they've left everyone behind who originally bought Rolex because it was a good tool watch. And now Tudor is there for those who want a good tool watch. And I bought one myself, so I sold all of my Rolexes. At one point, I've owned 4 in my collecting career at 1.3. I wouldn't say career, but collecting journey, and at 1.3 simultaneously. And frankly, I realized that I was collecting those partly because they're great watches, but partly also because, hey, I got a Rolex. And I'm getting as much joy out of this. It has phenomenal wrist presence. It's a great watch. It's made extremely well, keeps killer time. And I only paid 3,000 euros. Only 3,000 euros, considering that this is considered a bargain watch, and a lot of people would look at this as a grail watch. Tells me right away how stilted some of our market is. That 3,000 euros, well, what is that, 3,500, 3,600 bucks at the present exchange rate. When you think about that, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And so, Rolex has left the people who want to spend good, honest money, the $3,000 to $5,000 people, the Seamaster people, the Oris people, Mito people. People should look at those brands as well, like Tudor. Because frankly, a lot of reason people pay attention to Tudor is because of the Rolex connection. And there are a lot of other good watches out there. And I'm lucky to own a few of them. And I do believe that this Tudor is going to be a collectible, especially because of the modified edit movement in it, because it does represent everything Tudor was created to be and everything Rolex was. So I've been wool gathering, but hopefully my thoughts inspire some thoughts of your own and some conversation. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll answer every one of them. Let's flip the camera around and close out the episode. So that was the Tudor Black Bay Heritage, a great watch, well worth the mantle of Tudor, well worth the mantle of Rolex, and an excellent diver if you wanted a nice piece for your collection. So thanks for taking the time to listen. If you liked it, please subscribe. Leave any questions in the comments below. And thanks for taking the time to be with us today.